And welcome, Rebekkah Hansen, our abundance astrologer. Thank you so much for hosting for Karen. And I'm going to let you take the show.
Okay, I am so excited to be here. And I just, you are so fluent in human design. Please step out anytime you feel like it. And because I know you can add so much to it that I don't, haven't already grasped. So please jump on. I'm going to start, first of all, Rebekkah Hansen, abundanceastrologer.com. And I'm going to start screen sharing. I have a presentation for everybody today on the current astrological celestial human design weather. So hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, we see your screen.
Okay. So I need to, hold on, I need to get rid of some of the clutter that I see that you guys don't. Okay. All right, here we go. So we're going to be looking at the, this summer is jam-packed full of energy. And I know everybody can feel it. I've gotten questions from a lot of people saying, what on earth is going on? How can we help? What do we do? How do we keep ourselves out of trouble? That sort of thing. And we're going to be looking at mostly studying Mars, the Mars retrograde and the 3 eclipses, and hopefully understand the high energy and the low energy of what is going on so that we can, when we catch ourselves sliding into that low spot, we can recognize it and therefore up-level what's going on for us. And I want to start by...
Okay, hold on real quick. Sue says no sound. So if other people can hear us, can you please just type in the number 1 into the chat just to make sure that the sound quality is there? Okay. Okay, it looks like other people are able to hear us.
Okay, good deal.
Okay.
Good deal.
Thanks.
So what's up on the planet? The stress is definitely increasing, and people that normally aren't being triggered seem to be getting triggered. Anger pops up as an extreme more than just regular anger. And of course the earth is responding to these energies as well, and we're seeing more earthquakes, volcanoes, weather, severe weather, and so forth. And what I want to do here is kind of go through what we talked about last time. I was on a Facebook Live with Karen here a month ago. Actually, it was May 11th. And what we were looking at then was that Uranus moved into Taurus. And we were talking a lot about Uranus because the last time this happened was when Hitler came in and there was a lot of turmoil in the world. You can expect the unexpected when Uranus transits through Taurus. Now, Mars at the same time, within a day or two, changed signs as well and went into Aquarius. Whenever Mars and Aquarius do this dance, and they were like at a 90-degree angle astrologically from one another, anytime they do this, Mars has a tendency to bring in, the high energy of Mars is leadership. It is the person that is really, really strong that leads the underdog through a lot of turmoil. The low energy of that can be the warrior, can be the person, can be the negative warrior, the person that goes out, uses guns and knives, and spontaneously injures other people. And when you couple that with Uranus, you're looking at totally unexpected, out of the blue, road rage sort of circumstances. We talked about, if you look in the human design body graph, we talked about the solid channel from the brown, the square, the root center, leading up to the red square, which is the sacral, and that being a very mutative energy. Bringing in new ways of doing things and so forth. It can be a very transformational sort of energy. So I also want to talk about the channel 1-8 of inspiration. You can see the little box that's now highlighted on the body graph. And it was the Sun and Jupiter that made that definition happen. So the Sun was in gate 8 and the Jupiter was in gate 1, which the Sun is who we are, how we show up in the world, how you express yourself outward. Jupiter brings in gifts and blessings, and Jupiter also has a tendency to enlarge things. Now, that particular channel is very, very inspirational. It's about speaking from the inside of yourself. It's that inspiration that comes up from that soul or that core part of yourself. And I want to move into the Mars retrograde, because Mars was such a big player here back, I think that was May 15th. And right now we're looking at, or this summer, we're looking at a Mars retrograde. So on that last Facebook Live, I explained the retrograde process. I've got a little bit of a different way of it, showing it here. But what I want you to realize is that the pre-shadow period, which is the period of time leading up to that actual retrograde, starts at the degree that Mars was at before it started the same degree. It was at 28 degrees Capricorn. That pre-shadow period starts, and that's when Mars retrograde changes. So that pre-shadow period, what happens astrologically is that a person, whatever it is that you're experiencing during that pre-shadow period, if there are instances that come up that you're not quite sure of, or you make a decision that you kind of wish would change, or whatever, those are going to really be brought in front of your face during that retrograde period. So when Mars, it appears to stop before it goes retrograde. That's called a station. When it stations is a very heightened time for that particular energy. And remember, it's a very dynamic, warrior, energetic, action-filled sort of energy. And so that's going to be expanded right about the time that it stations retrograde, which happens on June the 26th. And that happens at 9 degrees Aquarius, and then it starts retrograding and will station again at 28 degrees Capricorn and on August the 27th. Then once it starts its forward movement again, we have the post-shadow period, which kind of feels like a hangover. It's almost like you're you're glad it's all over with, but you can still feel the effects of it. I have a lot of people ask me why they still feel like it's retrograde, and that is the shadow period after it has gone direct that they're feeling. And it loses its effect the further it gets away from that retrograde, from that area where it's stationed direct. And once it reaches the point of where it started that retrograde, it is out of that whole post-shadow period, which ends on October the 8th at 9 degrees Aquarius. And for a little bit of a time frame reference, I added this little box down at the bottom here just to show you the pre-shadow and the dates and all that, but also to make you aware that during this time, because it entered into Aquarius about the same time that Uranus entered into Taurus, Mars changed signs, moves forward, comes back retrograde, back over Capricorn, and then re-enters Aquarius again. So do we have any questions on that part? That's always a kind of a difficult thing to explain.
We're good with questions, so okay. No questions.
Okay, good. Good deal. So one thing that a lot of people haven't heard about is an out-of-bounds planet. And a lot of astrologers, I mean, we look at an astrology chart on a piece of paper, but our world is not a two-dimensional world. And when we look into the sky, I mean, you have to take into account where the equator is going around the Earth. And the sun is out from that equator. When that sun moves to the summer solstice, which is where we are right now, you get more light in the northern hemisphere. And at that point, it goes up almost to that out-of-bounds place in the universe. When a planet goes past that, which, by the way, that point is hold on, let me get my exact, sorry about this, 23 degrees and 27 minutes. When that angle gets higher than that, that's when the planet is considered out of bounds. When the sun drops below that, in other words, it's kind of a latitude type of measurement. When the sun drops 27 degrees down below that, that's when you have the winter solstice. Mars is going to be going out of bounds. And that out of bounds period energetically expresses like that planet on steroids. There is almost a wildness, a need to feel like you want to break the normal boundaries, so to speak. For Mars, Mars brings in this energy of, I want to break free of all the restrictions, and it can get as extreme as being anything from disregard for the law, violence, conflict, aggression, pent-up destruction. That would be the low energy of it. The high energy of that would be a very creatively thinking person or situation, visionary, inventive, inspirational, original, cherishing freedom. And you can kind of see this playing out in the world. We just went through, let me look here. We just went through Mercury being out of bounds from June the 7th and until June the 24th. So in other words, a couple of days, Mercury is going to come back into bounds. When Mercury is out of bounds, you have these extreme bouts of communication. And of course, we all have heard of Mercury retrograde, where you take that trickster energy and you put him out of bounds, and it's going to feel, again, like he's on steroids, like it's really accelerating. Does that make sense? I want to make sure that everybody gets these parts before we move into the charts that I have to show, because realizing that all of this is going on at once, and all of this is going to be experienced through the eclipses, which are very, very powerful charts. And it was amazing to me once I was looking at these as to how things are playing out. In other words, we have, and Karen talks about this a lot, you know, we manifest from our feelings. Now, if you have Mars out of bounds and retrograde at the same time, you're bringing in some really angry emotions, and it is going to be really critical that you align your feelings and your responses to the high energy of this rather than the low energy of it. I explained that to a lot of people as, and this is kind of an extreme, but when you deal with out of bounds, you're dealing with extremes, being for peace rather than against war.
Mm-hmm.
And that might seem like a really fine line, but it's dealing with the emotional expression of where you're coming from with it. So we've got a lot on our table, especially here in the United States right now. And a lot of people are getting stirred up, and that's a good thing. But when you really check in with yourself, you have to figure out whether you're coming from being against something or for something better, and then take that action. Because with Mars is so active this summer that there's going to be that warrior sort of energy, and we want to make sure we alchemize that into being creative and visionary and invent new things. And when I was thinking about this whole presentation, I thought, you know, several years ago, my hometown of about, 1,500 to 2,000 out in the prairie in North Dakota was hit by a tornado. And it was a Category 4 tornado. So it pretty much demolished about 3/4 of the town. And it's amazing to me how people come together when something really critical and difficult happens like that. It's almost like a story I tell people a lot is, you've got a rut in the road and you're a frog in that rut, and you try to jump out of that rut and can't until a big truck comes along. Then all of a sudden you've got the adrenaline and the strength to get out of that rut to avoid being killed. Well, that's kind of what's happening right now, is that we are really being called on to use all of our forces to make a change. And how we do that, the intentions we hold inside of ourselves emotionally, is going to really be what propels us forward, rather than doing it from a place of anger and hate. And that is so important right now. I can't stress that enough.
Well said. Well said.
Oh,
We do have a question, and we have someone who's raising their hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to read the question first.
Okay.
Lisa is asking, when Mars is out of bounds, the July 8th through September 24th, is this a good time for me to offer a grief support group to help people anchor their energy via creative self-expression?
You know, any time is a good time to do that. Right now, you're going to find people are needing that support and that help much more. I would say that really staying anchored and grounded for your own self, make sure you get plenty of rest, make sure you stay in balance, because you cannot help others if you're in the same place as them. In order to give them a hand up, you have to be coming from a spot of having done your own work. And it's going to be really important for all of us to keep up with doing our own work. So I would say absolutely be that leader. Mars out of bounds is going to give you a lot of strength to help these people, help give them the freedom they need from whatever it is that's helping them. So yeah, I would say absolutely. Now there are times, you know, I have done work with business owners as to when to start things and so forth. There are times you don't want to do, if you want to run a meditation group, doing it during a void of course moon, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of explaining that, but that would be a good time to do it. If you're wanting people to really take action with something, you wouldn't want to do it during a void of course moon. So there's a lot of little tiny pieces in the timing of everything, but absolutely give people all the support that you can, but make sure you have your own cup full first.
All right, now I'm going to unmute Macy, and just to be cognizant of the time, we're just going to take a quick question, and then I'm going to put Macy back in the in the group and remove her as a panelist.
Okay. Good deal. I need to
Macy?
stop sharing my screen, I bet.
I don't know what happened. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Hi.
I think it's just by mistake. I hit a button and I don't know why I switched from one room to the other one. But love your talk, Rebecca. Love to see you here.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. So then we did have one more question come up, and we may answer this at the end. I'm not sure if now's a good time to answer it, but Carol says, my niece is getting married mid-September. What are the implications for that? So,
oh gosh, you know, when I look at something like that, I want to look at both the astrology and the human design of each person involved, as well as coordinating it with the dates and times. And so that is a big rabbit hole that I go into in one-on-one sessions with people that we do not have time for here. I wish I could answer that for you. I really do. But you just have to, if you didn't want to actually really examine the dates and coordinate all of that, I would say just use your best judgment, and I think they'll be just fine. So I'm going to go back and share my screen, and hopefully we can get through most of this. I've got several charts to go, but I just wanted to get this part down and explained. I've kind of gone through some of this that's on this right here. Let me play this a little bit larger. Okay. So this first chart that you're going to look at, we're going to look at where the, I'll let this slide finish through here. So what I want to bring your attention to first, this is the current transits. This is for today, and we are just the day after the summer solstice. So I want you to look on the mandala where that dotted line is that separates the astrology signs and the gates of the human design body graph. If you'll notice, there are like 5.5 gates per sign. So human design takes the astrology and narrows it down and makes it much more finite. And that's really important to know, because you're still holding the energy of the astrology sign, but it is kind of putting a magnifying glass on various different places on the human design body graph. So let's add the astrology chart to it. And if you notice, the sun, which is the circle with the dot in it, is in gate 15 on the mandala. It is in gate 15 under the personality in the middle of the page, and I'm pointing to gate 15 on the human design body graph coming off of that diamond there in the middle. And, you know, I could go into all the little nuances of all these, but I think I'm going to hold off just because of the time. What I want you to look at is the Mars is in gate 19, and that little upside down horseshoe there is the south node, and the north and south node exactly opposite from that on the wheel is the north node, the right side up horseshoe. That is a place around the planet that it's the nodes of the moon, and I don't want to get into that too far, but with human design, the nodes, the south node is about what you've mastered in the past, and the north node is about what you are going towards after about the age 40. When I look at the north and south nodes in astrology, I look at also the reincarnation piece of it and what you bring into this lifetime and what it is that you are here to explore when I look at the north node. So Mars is right alongside those nodes in gate 19. And gate 19 is down on the root center on the human design body graph. Gate 19 is a very sensitive gate. It's the gate of wanting, but it really is craving and needing that emotional honesty. if you have that gate 40, which is opposite that gate 19 on the root, it's sitting in your emotional solar plexus. And we are wanting to definitely manifest from our emotions and keep our emotions clean. In other words, you can ask a question, but it's what you feel that is really going to bring forth whatever it is that you're manifesting. Have I got that right, Kristen? She must not be.
Yes, right on.
So in the pink capsule, you have Venus in Leo in gate 33, and gate 33 is on the throat center. So the thing about gate 33 of privacy is that a lot of people will tell you various stories, and what you want to do is only share those stories if and when it is appropriate. Now, on the astrology chart, these two are exactly opposite, and frequently you will hear that Mars is masculine, Venus is feminine. Most people pretty much know that. There's been books written about all of that. So you're taking a blend of this energy, and I would like to say that, you know, I haven't figured out how to not use masculine and feminine as words, but I don't want it confused with male and female, because we're getting to the point of where males are adopting the feminine energy and vice versa. And I think here what we're looking at is, what is it that we're valuing and what is it we're willing to take action on? Because Mars is about action, and Venus rules not only relationships, but how you value yourself. Another interesting piece here is Pluto and gate 54 and Mercury, which rules communication, in gate 53. These two are down on the root center as well, and it's going to be important that Pluto is about transformation, yes, but Pluto can be about power struggles. So when you're communicating with people, be very sensitive as to whether it is a power struggle or not. And because these appear in the root center, there's a pulsing sort of energy. So you want to make sure that you are acting when the energy is on, and be very aware of that pulsing. You have anything to add to that, Kristen?
Nope, all good. Lynn said that 49 is opposite 19.
Mm-hmm.
And she thought you said 40, but I heard 49. So just to clarify,
40.
Yeah, 49 is opposite 19.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on here. We've got about half an hour left or so. So these next charts, we're going to look at the full moon, which happens just, 6 days from now, June 28th, and then the eclipses that are coming up. And what you're going to see over this course is a pattern. Be aware that Mars is retrograde right before the full moon in June. The out of bounds Mars starts right before the partial solar eclipse, and Mercury goes retrograde right before the total lunar eclipse. So these are some really, really powerful times. There's a lot of changing energy. Mercury dealing with communication, Mars dealing with action. So let's move on here and bring in the astrology chart for the full moon that's coming in. And the sun in gate 52, of course, is opposite the moon in gate 58. And along with the moon, right conjunct there with the moon, both of them are at 6 degrees Capricorn. Now, Saturn can bring in a really heavy sort of vibe, especially during a full moon. Full moons can be wild and crazy anyway. Trust me, I was in the medical profession for 30 years. I can tell you all about how crazy full moons can get. But when you bring Saturn in, Saturn has a tendency, Saturn kind of gets a bad rap because there's this restriction thing that kind of clouds Saturn, and Saturn means you have to work for something, and it's old father time, take your time one step at a time sort of thing. But it also is about reconstruction. And with this full moon and having Saturn there exactly conjunct it, you are looking at a time when we can definitely start looking at reconstructing things. It's bringing light to what we need to look at as far as what needs to be redesigned in our life. What I want to show you here is this channel 731, which is the channel of democracy. This is a beautiful, beautiful happening that is going on right now. And if you look, this is on the table. And sometimes it takes seeing the ugly out on the table before we can really, really address it. Right now you have the North Node in gate 31 and Venus in gate 7. If you'll notice that North Node, that upside down horseshoe thing, or that right side up, I don't know how you want to, in the yellow box. Venus makes that channel defined. If you look below that, Mercury isn't far behind, and then you have the Sun. All of these are going to come over that. So this whole summer, you're going to have this channel of democracy and leadership being accented. Right now we're looking at values because of Venus and relationships. Pretty soon you're going to be looking at communication because of Mercury. And then when the Sun comes around it, it's looking at expressing yourself out to the world and doing it through democracy. In other words, it's being needed at this point. Now the solar eclipse, let me see if I can, okay. The solar eclipse, I know you guys can't see this, but part of my screen is covered up. So I'm going to be referring to my, here we go, my notes so that I can see the whole screen. The solar eclipse on July the 13th. What we're looking at is, again, this channel 731 is being highlighted, this time by Mercury. And it happens on a partial solar eclipse. In other words, the Sun and the Moon are conjunct. When you look at the, and I've got a slide to explain all this that I can play later if we have time. I don't know that we will. When you are wanting to plant seeds, the new moon is the time to do it. This is a new moon. The Moon and the Sun are conjunct. In other words, the moon is going to look dark to us. When you have an eclipse, in other words, when this new moon happens close to that nodal axis that we talked about, that is helping to define the gate of democracy, when you have such a powerful, powerful new moon that is highlighted by this eclipse, it is a extremely good point of time to pay attention to what it is you are thinking, what it is you are intending. I would definitely want to be a conscious intender at that point, because what energy happens during eclipses has a much further reach. It can go out 3 months, 6 months, and on, versus just the new moon, which will usually last for the period of the month until you come to the next new moon. So pay attention to what you're planning. Pay attention to what you're experiencing and what seeds that you're planting during this particular solar eclipse. So that is happening in gate 53, which is the gate of starting things, which is very appropriate for a solar eclipse. Doesn't mean that you have the energy to really finish it or do all the work, but it's about starting things. That is just such a beautiful position for this particular time right now. What really brings this home, though, is that in astrology, Pluto is going to be exactly opposite that eclipse at 20 degrees Capricorn. Pluto is about transformation.
Okay, let me ask a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
You're referencing energies that are opposite of each other.
Mm-hmm.
What is the significance of doing so?
Okay, so an opposition in astrology is 180 degrees, which this Pluto is 180 degrees. It brings in a friction sort of energy to it. In other words, you don't have growth without friction. This is going to bring things right in front of your face. Pluto can bring in power struggles. Pluto can bring in a lot of digging deep for the answers. Sometimes you'll have subconscious things that will come up that you have to deal with. It's not pleasant. But keeping in mind that in order to heal whatever wounds we've got going on, that scab has to be ripped off, and that hurts. When it's Pluto, you're going to be going deep into those wounds, which is, I mean, we've got some pretty major wounds here just in the country, let alone on personal levels. During this full moon, be aware that there are some things that could come up. You don't want those things that come up to result in power struggles with people. You always have choices. You have the choice to respond, react, or just appease and sit back and let it flow by. This would be a time to be aware of what deep issues are coming up. Plant the seeds and intend positive outcomes to deal with whatever comes up rather than get into a power struggle over it. So knowing the energies really gives you the heads up. It really does.
And then we have another question, and I don't know if you have time to answer this or if you need to have like a one-on-one sit down with them to look at their chart. But Anne is saying that I have Uranus in gate 7 on her chart, but she doesn't have the 31. So will this have meaning at the eclipse?
Absolutely, because the whole channel is defined, you're definitely going to feel it. Now, Uranus, by having Uranus in gate 7, there's already a humanitarian vibe to you. You carry that with you. You have the design that you want the best for the whole planet. And you can sometimes forge in unexpectedly with that, or you can sometimes be called on. It is a channel of democratic action, so it's not something that you want to just jump in and start. But by having this whole channel defined, you're definitely going to feel this. And yeah, I don't want to go into it any further than that. I have this whole channel myself defined, so I get what you're saying, and be aware of what's going on. Just keep your eyes open and keep a handle on what it is you yourself are manifesting. And of course, be aware to what's happening around you, you know.
And you said full moon, or do you mean new moon? For example, to deal with whatever power struggles come up.
This is during the new moon. This is the new moon on July 31st, when the sun and the moon are conjunct and the moon is dark. What I wanted to give you is that this purple triangle is called a grand trine in astrology, and this grand trine, it's a beautiful, beautiful, easygoing aspect. It happens in earth signs between Uranus, Venus, and Capricorn. a very grounding sort of energy. So use that groundedness. And if you get kind of thrown off balance during this new moon, or the time leading up to it or the time moving away from it, I would say get outdoors, walk barefoot if you can, sit by a waterfall if you can, sit on a rock. Use that grounded energy to help you, because it definitely can. The gates involved here bring in the gate of responsibility, 27, which is where Uranus is at. The gate, what is it? I have 59. Both of those are very, it's part of the defense circuit, very family-oriented sort of gates. And, you know, just stay grounded with it. You have Saturn sitting in gate 58, which is the gate of joy.
And one clarification, Rebekkah, did you mean to say July 13th? Because I think you may have said the 31st.
Oh, I probably am dyslexic. It is July the 13th.
Okay,
I'm looking at, because part of this Zoom program covers my dates on the top of my screen, I'm looking at my papers here, and I transposed it. It is the 13th. And I will say that the universal energy, the times, or the universal time that I did for these is the time in Greenwich, England. So it could be a day earlier wherever you're at for the exact moment of it. I just wanted to get that in there. And of course we have the out-of-bound Mars starting in about that time in gate 41. And gate 41 is about fantasy, and it's about a time for dreaming and really coming up with these inspirational ideas. So let's look at July the 27th, the total lunar eclipse. And you have the sun in gate 31 again. And of course, the full moon is always opposite the sun, and you have Mars conjunct that moon. Mars is a big player. I'm telling you what, he's just really a busy little guy. You can see where gate 41 is the gate of fantasy. It is the time for bringing in and dreaming up all these new ideas and bringing in, you know, ways to deal with what is going on for us personally, on the planet, and so forth. The interesting piece here is, once again, we have, because Mars is retrograde, it is squaring Uranus again. And Uranus is in gate 27, the gate of responsibility. So there's definitely a play between, in astrology, an opposition, which is 180 degrees apart, can be kind of a tense aspect, as well as squares. What I have found is that these are times when, yes, things can happen unexpectedly. They certainly can. During this particular full moon, I would pay attention to whatever earth changes is going on. If this aligns up with something in your own natal astrology chart, lay low during the time, take it easy. There's no out-predicting Uranus, because Uranus is definitely the planet of being unexpected. So lay low during this full moon if this like hits right straight on some of your, like your ascendant or on top of your sun or something like that. And that would get into actually looking at your chart and comparing it with what's going on here. But definitely is a time to stay grounded. Now, Uranus here is 120, still 120 degrees or trine from that Saturn. So there is that grounded aspect that comes into play here, which is in human design gate 10. Gate 10 is about how you value yourself. You can go easily into being a victim, or you can go easily into really valuing yourself. And so I would choose the high road. Try to choose the high road and let that kind of support you with that. So let me see, the partial solar eclipse, August the 11th. And this particular, once again, this particular eclipse highlights this channel 731. Not only is the new moon in that gate, in the gate 7, but so is Mercury. And so communication or not. Mercury is definitely the little trickster of the zodiac, and it can play tricks on you, and having it on a new moon, the way to use that energy would be, I would say, sit down with a pen and paper and write out your intentions, because new moons are for starting things. Mercury is about communication. Mercury rules the hands. Sit down and write those out physically. You have the North Node still in gate 31. And Mars, of course, is making an aspect to that. It's in gate 60. I'm going to move fairly fast through these. What I do want you to notice is that Pluto is in gate 54. You have Mars bringing in some energy into it. And what this makes in astrology is a sacred geometry symbol called a yod. Now, a yod, whenever that happens, and if you look at the finger, it's also called the finger of God, and the finger planet is usually the one at the furthest away from the other two planets, which in this case just happens to be this partial solar eclipse. The energy of a yod is that you want to break through all boundaries. This is going to add to the energy of this Mars out of bounds and the retrogrades that we've got going on. And if you look at the end of each planet on the astrology wheel, you will see a little red RX. That means that that particular planet at that time is retrograde. You've got several planets retrograde during that particular time. Retrogrades are all about really going within, bringing the world closer to you, re-examining what your own motives are and what it is that you're here to give and so forth. So it's a pretty darn powerful time we're going through right now. And the gift of it is this 731 channel. Can you expound on that 731 channel, Kristen, a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the last channel in the logical sequence, and it's where all of the ideas that have gone through an experiential or experiment phase, and then you share those with other people, and it hopes, and you take those findings so that you can lead. And this is very democratic energy. It's where everyone has an equal voice, and it needs to be invited out of you instead of you just taking over. There are other types of leadership energy in the chart where you are a natural leader and you don't need to be invited. You actually can just take over and people will do what you tell them to do. But this particular energy does need to be invited. And when it's invited, everyone does have equal voice at its highest expression.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I'm so glad you're here with me. You articulate so well.
And I know you want to talk about your class coming up. We do have a couple of questions. One is, what kind of tricks does Mercury play and why?
Well, I don't know the why. Some of the tricks are, you can find airlines computers being blown. You have a telephone that just doesn't work, or it's kind of the electrical and devices and so forth that it can mess with. Communication is a tricky part. When Mercury is in retrograde, I would always tell my entrepreneurial clients that is a good time, because it deals with communication. It's a good time to go back and talk to people that you haven't talked to, revisit them, and see if they need some support in some way. Mercury retrograde brings in the trickster part of him will cause miscommunication. It's the planet of communication. It can be that I would say you would definitely want to make sure that when you speak your words that the other person understands them with the intent that you said them with. That would be one of the things. But it's also about, a car engine that just doesn't work and you can't figure out why, or that sort of thing. And, it's not a bad time. It's just knowing how to use the energy. So, I almost forgot about the class coming up. I have a class. For those of you that aren't real knowledgeable on the energies of each one of these planets, I've got a very basic astrology planet class starting this Monday. It's called Power Planets 2018. And you can sign up at www.abundanceastrologer.com/power-planet. And we're going to take 4 Mondays in a row, and we're going to examine about 4 planets during that hour period of time. So we're going to get to learn the energies of Mercury a little bit closer, and Mars and Saturn and so forth. We're going to take hopefully around 15 minutes on each one. If it goes quicker or slower, I'm open to being flexible with this. And then at the very end of it, I'm going to talk about some of the asteroids. So that's what that's all about. But you got to sign up quick, and there will be recordings of it. But it does start this coming Monday night, June the 25th. So.
And what time does it start?
It's going to be at 5 o'clock Mountain Time.
And you're going to use Zoom, right?
I'm going to use Zoom.
Okay, and I put the link in the chat, and I'm also going to post it on the Facebook page. And whenever we send out the email with the recording of this video, it'll be in there too. So the other questions we have are about people's charts. And so I'm not sure if you'll have time for these or if you want to save these for the class, but I'll just read them to see how you respond.
Okay, well, let's look at it.
If you have Sun-Moon conjunction in Capricorn in birth chart, what will be the effect of these eclipses?
It depends on how close they are to the actual eclipse. I give an orb of about 8 degrees on either side, so 8 degrees leading up to or 8 degrees moving away from. If it is just exact, you're definitely going to feel it in some way. It depends on what house it falls in for you. And that is dependent on having a correct birth time. So in other words, if those planets in that eclipse land in the 4th house, for instance, it's going to affect you. You're going to feel it at home. If it is in the 10th house, you're going to feel it out in your workplace or in your professional life. In the 7th house, it could be with relationships and so forth. Yeah.
Okay. Another question is, I'm in Saturn return with gate 58 red, gate 38 black, and Pluto has gate 40 red and gate 59 black in birth chart. Any tips for Saturn return?
Oh boy. I'm not sure I got all the pieces on that.
Okay.
But I will speak to, I mean, I'm a visual person and I have to look at somebody's chart. And when I work with somebody, I look at not only their astrology chart, but their human design chart and their numerology. So we go really, really deep with that. But a Saturn return, a lot of people, Saturn is kind of a karmic sort of planet. In other words, if you have really kept things up to date and organized and so forth, by the time your Saturn return comes around, you're going to reap the benefits. If you have not been organized, if you have been sort of sloppy, let's say in your bookkeeping or whatever, that's going to catch up with you and you're going to have to deal with it. And Saturn's going to make sure you sit down and you work at it until you get it right. Darn it. I always explain Saturn as the toughest teacher we all had in high school in the class where we learned the most. So he will put fences and restrictions on you to help you focus to get it right. And sometimes that takes work. With Saturn, it takes work.
Okay, we have about 4 minutes left, so I'm going to try to read these quick. How does Venus on 4 mean for the 27th of July?
Venus on 4, you mean in gate 4? I'm not sure I understand.
I'm not sure if it's 4th house or 4th gate. So Anne, if you could clarify that. And then we have a question on Facebook that it's kind of long, so I hope I get this right. Her incarnation cross is, oh, hold on. My incarnation sun is 41 and RAX unexpected. I don't know what that means. Is that like a astrology?
Right angle cross of the unexpected.
Okay. Thank you. I am experiencing numerous intensities to act and become right now.
First of all,
okay. No, go ahead.
First of all, with the gate, with the gate 41, it's on the root, and so you're dealing with a pulsing sort of energy. And right angle cross of the unexpected is pretty much that. I have the right angle cross of unexpected. And you can't explain the unexpected. you just can't explain it. I mean, things happen to me unexpectedly. I'm put in circumstances unexpectedly. I act out unexpectedly. I even sometimes surprise myself. But you know, it's a beautiful energy. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps things exciting and it keeps things wonderful. Now, with the sun in the gate 41 is about fantasy. That's the ability to dream. It doesn't mean you have to act on it, because it's not that sort of an energy. It's about bringing in the dreamlike qualities, and you could probably add to that on the 41.
It's a lot of fantasy and great writer energy.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it can be so vivid you think it actually happened. So it can be like you had a conversation with someone that they weren't actually there having the conversation with you. And so you definitely want to be mindful of
it's almost like dreamlike sort of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's great. It's great for creating and being creative and expressing yourself, and it's fun and juicy, and it's also has that pulse. It pulses on and pulses off. So
yeah.
Okay, so Anne gave me clarification about gate 4. Gate 4 Venus. Venus was on gate 4 on the chart from the 27th.
I'm trying.
So what will that mean?
with Venus in gate 4, gate 4 is all about, I mean, gate 4 is the gate of answers, first of all. And it doesn't necessarily mean that with Venus there, Venus is about your own internal value systems and how you relate to other people. So I would, you know, I'd have to see the whole chart. I mean, it's so hard to, the same thing with astrology. If I'm looking at Venus in a specific house or at a specific degree, I don't know what else is. I mean, there might be a whole stellium, which is 3 or more planets in one spot that makes an angle to that, that brings in a whole nother energy. So asking about a specific planet in a specific gate is just too narrow. I don't feel comfortable just addressing that, other than you're probably looking at issues of value and asking questions about your value and how you relate that to others. It doesn't mean you have all the answers for it, because answers are produced from your emotions, from your feelings and that sort of thing.
She was saying it was from the chart that you showed us on one of the slides. The 27.
Astrology or on the human design?
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at those, and well, unfortunately, I think we're...
Oh yeah, we're at our time. So a lot of people are asking how to get a reading from you because they want some guidance on when to start some things and when and where to do what, and how to get some tips from you on how to lay low. So we do have the Facebook group, the Human Design for Everyone Facebook page open. So if y'all post any questions, Rebekkah can go there and see them and then give y'all some information on how to get in contact with her. I've posted the link to your class, which is coming up on Monday.
Oh, good.
And
that's going to give a lot of people insight as to how to use the energy of the planets, whether it's sitting in a specific place astrologically or whether that energy is sitting in a specific gate. That's going to bring in a whole lot of insight. So, and I will also add RebekkahHansen.com/free-call is a kind of a explore if you really need or want to have a session with me. And it's just a brief call to figure out if we're a good match, and you know, discuss amounts and stuff like that. So
okay, and I'll let you post that on the Facebook page.
I will.
So everyone's saying thank you for being here today, and
yes, join me in my class on Monday.
Yes. All right, thank y'all.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.